I'm Vin.
I'm Sorry.
That's Booby.
And Jumpy and Ghosty. Chip.
Drag ropes. Storm corrosion for the big homie.
Luca. I thought
Luca.
this was actually Luca from, remember we did the escape rooms?
Yeah.
I was like, are you from escape? She was like, I was like, are you the Luca? She was like, I don't know if I'm the Luca. And then it kind of reminded me of, you've never seen any Alice in Wonderlands?
No.
Well, sometimes when she arrives back there, they'll be like, are you the Alice? It's the Alice? And then she'd be like, I don't know, I'm Alice. Might be one of those things. Anyway.
Archery.
So she asked for drag ropes storm corrosion. Have you ever heard of these?
Nope. But that name, Michael Ackerfeld, sounds familiar.
Oh.
So, but
Okay.
he wasn't in that band. I don't know. We're going to have, I wish I could Google it, but our internet's dead. So there's also that. Okay. So drag ropes. For timely topical political commentary, you can hit us up at Middle America with Vin and Sorry.
And if you're wondering, how did Luca get a song reaction? She jumped on our Patreon tier. We have one that's for $75 a month, and you can jump on and request a song.
It's not a month. Like, you're not committed to do it every month.
No, but you can do it for more than 1 month. For some reason, people think they can't.
Right.
They're like, if I do it for more than one, can I get more than one
So
song?
you can do it. You can do a one-off. You can do it 3 times. You can do it as many times as you'd like, or no times as you'd like. Just for clarity, that. So that gives you a golden ticket.
True. Yeah.
Just that gives you a golden ticket, like at Disney World, and sends your song request straight to the front. And that's the reason why this channel, for being the size that it is doing bands and songs that are kind of obscure.
Right.
There's also the $1 tier Patreon. You join an alliance and all that. That's my favorite version because, you know, I'm a community-oriented guy, yada, yada,
Sociable person.
And then Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Gmail, all that good jazz gets you song reviewed as well. Back in the day, we used to go, get somebody to subscribe to the channel. Remember that? If you get one person to sub to the channel, we will do your song request.
You had to stop saying that. You said it longer than you should have, though. I'm like, stop saying it. You know, I really thought when we first started the channel and we were doing all these songs, I'm like, we're going to run out of songs. What are we going to do?
Right. Well, that was part of it. It's like,
I had no idea how
I had run out of songs that I was going to suggest to you because my metal palette was like 4 bands. 2 of which aren't really metal, apparently. So, anyway, thank you guys for educating us throughout the years. This now is Drag Ropes from the band Storm Corrosion. Let's go.
Go.
Oh, wow. We get an official video? They better not block it. Yikes.
Gosh.
Yikes. There's a lot there. It's a lot there.
Yeah.
The relationship of the church with capital punishment, which was kind of a stalwart of the Dark Ages, up to really recently, which really, to some degree, the church, oddly enough, is one of the most vocal supporters of capital punishment, while simultaneously claiming themselves to be pro-life.
Right. Right.
Which is very, very hard nut to crack. What's that?
It was a female doing. It looked like they were trying to get married, and that it was a female that was.
But you notice they got married in the woods.
Oh, I know.
And not in the church,
right?
Because that old stodgy character was the leader of the church and all that. So they couldn't get married in the church because of just the way that.
But then the
church is
this nasty person. The music that they had behind this thing was just
spooky as hell. I love the animation.
Yes.
I thought they did a really good job.
For sure. This creature that was, it's a person, but that was watching them, that was like the bad guy that went and then told that.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just remember that feeling. Like, people were always doing that to me when I was a teenager. And I was friggin' like, if you compare what I was as a teenager to like the rest of America, like, I wasn't doing shit.
Yeah.
I wasn't cursing. I wasn't going to parties. I wasn't, having sex. There was like nothing. There was like barely nothing that I was doing. And like the minute I kissed my boyfriend in the grocery store, somebody promptly went and told my parents.
They should have.
I drove my car too fast. Somebody told my parents. I'm like, what is with all these grown-up tattletales? Like, everybody's... And so, like, that scene reminded me of that. It used to make me so frustrated. I was like, you don't understand the type of environment that I'm living under over here. Like, my parents were rigid as hell. And then, like, these people were just adding to it, like, I am sure they didn't carry the same standard for themselves as they were bringing to my parents for me.
Well, yeah, I mean,
so annoying.
Yeah, religious investigators rarely do. But I mean, I remember, I'm against capital punishment, and I always say it is improper for a Christian to ever call for the death of anyone.
Yeah.
And it made me smirk a little bit because at the end of the thing, the guy goes and burns the crazy guy in the church and all the rest of it and kills him. And it's funny because I'm in a discussion of mutual understanding with a good friend of mine, and we're talking about the propensity that all of us have. My contention is that all of us have the seed of murderous rage in our hearts, and we all have ways to justify it. So, for example, the majority of us are looking at what happened at the end of this video and going, well, good for that guy. Screw that guy. He was a religious bastard.
Well, I mean, that's not what I was thinking. He should have done that before killing the girl.
Right.
But still, I get where you're coming from.
He should have killed him before he killed the girl, right? Because you're the girl in the story. So, you would have, and I probably would have done some shit like that. But the point is like, yeah, good for that guy. It's like, wait a second, you just killed somebody.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What's the difference? He was killing all those people in the town. He had his own justification.
Mm-hmm.
This guy's killing this guy. He's got his justification. And he feels right in doing so, and the other guy feels right in doing so. Although the screenshot is pretty crazy there because you've got Christ dying for the sins of the world, and then you've got this guy dying for his own sin. And of course, I'm sure that the creators of this video didn't mean to communicate that, but sometimes when you say as a Christian Christ died for the world, it's just too big. And so when you say Christ died for the sins of that town, meaning that religious guy's sin who killed all those people, and the guy who's killing him, Christ died for both of their sins, because both of them are sinners. And one of the 10,000 reasons that God had Christ die in such an epically violent way is to look at us and say, you want to continue with this? This is the way we need to go?
Yeah.
Or maybe there's a different way to treat each other. You know, I absolutely believe in, you know, penal substitutionary atonement. You know, there's always all these different theories of atonement. One of them is a governmental view that Jesus died to show us that living violently and things of that nature is not good and it's horrible. And if you could have the pinnacle of human goodness, which is Jesus, then get subsumed under all this hate and evil, then that tells us that then we're never going to get to beyond this if we don't change the way that we live and think and all the rest of it. And of course, from a Reformed perspective, that's completely heretical. But I would simply say, well, why can't we have both and? Why can't we have the governmental view and Christus Victor and penal substitution? Like, two people know what I'm talking about right now, but the imagery at this particular shot, and I actually want to screenshot this because it's a very powerful picture, and we need to use this for the thumbnail and show.
Yes, I will. Or I'll definitely put it in.
Don't even include our faces in the thingamajiggy. Just leave that as the screenshot. But anyway, like it's a very, very powerful picture to me, because the propensity for judgment, it's one of the first Bible movies we had. The propensity for judgment is just runs through the veins of human beings. Yeah. And it's like, I am certain that guy, when he was doing the killing and he was making everybody watch the public killing, I am sure he felt completely justified in it. And I'm also sure that the guy that set that church on fire and killed that guy in there, I'm certain he felt completely justified in it. And the way that you watch the video and the way the story is being told is you're supposed to side with the guy at the end who set the guy on fire. You're supposed to look at that guy and go, good for him. And but unfortunately for the video, for me, is when I see him juxtaposed to Christ, I go, nah, none of us with feet of clay have the right to make that call. That's just the older I've gotten and the things that I've seen and, you know, taking part in, like, you know, I was talking to a good buddy of mine, you know, 275 Ranger, we were doing the political fireside, and I had made some comment about Baghdadi, and you know, Trump was gloating over killing Baghdadi because he can't say Abu Bakr. He called him Abu Bakr.
No, really?
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, whatever. But anyway, so I'm like, yeah, screw that guy. Good for him.
Yes, I remember this. Yeah.
And Webb goes, oh, so Vin's pro-life until it's, you know, whatever. And Ben kind of like, yeah, he mocks most of the time. But you know what? I was completely convicted. I was like, you're right. I should not have. It is inappropriate for me to celebrate the death of anyone. It's inconsistent with Christian.
Yeah, it is.
With the example of Christ to advocate for the death of anyone. And I could easily make a case that in being subbed out for Barabbas, that Jesus was essentially dying for Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, because Baghdadi was essentially a jihadist just like Barabbas was. And so
it's not easy to have that mindset on it, though. It's much easier to be like, yeah, burn that guy. Or, kill that guy. Yeah. Because there's some people that have done so many atrocious things that you feel like that the only answer is to, like, be done with this person. Good day, sir.
That's what 275 Ranger sees. He said, come on, Vin. You and I both know some people need killing. And that's a common phrase in certain subcultures, like, you know, this guy needs killing. But then I said, well, wait a second. Who decides? Who decides? And which group of people has done the most killing in the last 20 years? It's Americans. We've done the most killing of innocent people in the last 20 years. Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi doesn't hold a candle to what we've been able to do in 3 days in Iraq and Afghanistan and countries all over the world. You're talking about all these drone bombings Obama did. You know, Kyle Kalinske had a thing that was like 90% civilians, which to this moment, I need to see that documentation. I don't know how you could possibly... You know, when you drone someone, you can't... because it's so hard to tell who you're hitting and who you're not, I don't believe any number on any side. But the point is, we've killed a bunch of civilians. Like, we've
we've obviously done a lot of damage.
We've raised the most hell on earth. So do we need killing then? You see what I'm saying? Like, it's not for us to say who needs killing. Because then can somebody on the other side say Americans need killing because we're doing all this stuff and we're perpetuating hey, listen, Republican or Democrat, we're voting these people into office and they're doing this killing indiscriminately all over the freaking planet for the last 20 years. Those are indisputable facts.
Yeah.
So then do people in other countries get to say, man, these Americans, they keep voting in people and paying taxes that support this war machine? You know, everybody stood up and clapped when we were talking about Venezuela. Venezuela had a democratically elected leader over there. But because the guy's not friendly in the United States, that was the one time that the Democrats and the Republicans stood up together in complete harmony. Pelosi was up there. She was clapping about that before even Mike Pence, who's the manager of that entire theater over there. So it's just like, it's like, the minute you say that, it's like, who determines that? Mm-hmm. Who gets to determine that? Well, currently we do, because we're the biggest bully in town. So we get to determine who needs killing. Mm-hmm. And so that's why I just think the message, especially in the New Testament, is like, man, that's not for us. We're not to be... And I understand 275, and 275 at this point doesn't identify as a Christian, I don't think. Mm-hmm. And so I get him, I understand it, I get it. And I'm not saying that... There's some bad, like Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi was a bad person. He was objectively a horrible person. Mm-hmm. He was a murderer, he was a rapist, he was a horrible, terrible person. I get it. But I don't think that ultimate issue is our call to make.
As Christians.
As Christian or as human beings. I think it's something that God allows. And, you know, and it's interesting because, you know, the Old Testament absolutely calls for capital punishment. Mm-hmm. But I don't think that that's part of God's... Well, I know for a fact it's not part of God's ideal world, because the first time somebody did something deserving of capital punishment...
He let him off.
The Hebrew emphatically says, not so. That's why you have an exclamation point. When Cain says, whoever finds me will kill me. The Hebrew is...
Right.
God is... No way, nobody's going to kill you. And then God functions as the bodyguard for the first murderer. Mm-hmm. And so that tells me what God's heart is towards capital punishment.
I just haven't matured in that yet. Like, I see that you've had experiences and certain things have brought you to certain places, but I just... There are certain things that
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Crimes against children.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, the irony is
like,
in America, you don't get executed for crimes against children.
Oh, I know, but I think that there should be.
And I'm sorry, miss, but the vast majority, on the percentile basis of people who get executed in America are black people.
Well, yes, and I know that, and I don't agree with that. I'm just saying...
Go watch the Middle America video on it. I've got Republicans admitting this stuff. Go ahead.
Yeah. Obviously, I'm not on board with that. It's just very difficult for me to say absolutely no capital punishment under any circumstances. I think that that's the Christian response. Yeah. And I think that that's where I should be. But there are just some things that I'm like...
Yeah, it's a strange thing to me from a theological perspective. Christians who believe that the wages of sin is death, and that if Jesus did die on their behalf, they would have to experience the second death. For those same people to then turn around and call for the death of other people is just a very strange phenomenon.
Well, especially if you believe that that person is going to go straight to hell after that.
Correct.
Why wouldn't you want to give that person more time?
Right.
And I understand all of that. It's, yeah.
But I get it.
But I'm speaking honestly. There are some things that...
I get it.
You know, namely, I think if I saw somebody doing... If it was within my means and someone was doing something to my kids... I don't see that person getting out of there without... You know what I mean? Like, I don't see myself saying, well, you know, we're gonna...
You'd send them straight to Vrindavan.
I would.
100%.
I would, and I really believe that I would.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that that's the right response. I mean, I'm telling you, if somebody was doing something to my kids, and I had the means to take care of that situation... And I didn't, and instead, like, I don't know, share the gospel with them or did something like that, you would know there was some supernatural shit going on. You would know that.
Yeah.
Because, no way.
Yeah. No, and I like I said, I understand that. And I think that the self-defense or the defense of the child issue is different from, let's say, 200 years ago, where they used to do these public executions. And it was mostly done by the Christian apparatus in a given town. And of course, we talk about like the whole Salem witch trials or whatever, and those were horrible. But there were many other people we have to assume that died.
Oh yeah.
Needlessly.
Oh, absolutely.
Under the complete, these folks believed that they were justified in doing it X, Y, and Z, and and it's funny, like every time I have one of these conversations, somebody always quotes Romans 13 as if I don't know Romans 13, or is Romans 13 or 14 where Paul says the soldier doesn't bear the sword in vain. He's God's servant to distribute justice to the wrongdoer. He's an instrument of wrath to distribute justice to the wrongdoer. And what's interesting, in the previous chapter in Romans, Paul tells the Christians, do not be an agent of wrath.
Yep.
If your enemy is thirsty, give him something to drink. If he's hungry, feed him. Do not avenge yourself. Bless and do not curse. So the Christians are told, bless and do not curse. Do not have any room for vengeance for yourself. He says, leave room for God's vengeance. That's what the Christians are told to do. In the next chapter, Paul tells Christians, look, these soldiers, they are the instruments of God's wrath. Well, at the time of the writing of Romans 13, all the soldiers were not Christians.
Right.
So my point is simply to say, it is not for Christians to be instruments of death or agents of wrath. Our role in a society is to be agents of mercy. But historically, we've yet to really figure that out. When we were outnumbered, we understood it. And then the minute we got numbers, all of a sudden, it started becoming very murky and very cloudy. And all I'm saying is, let's just go back to, let's live as if we were outnumbered, even though in many situations in the Western world we're the majority.
I know that when the scene came up here at the beginning, where you see all the people around the site where the person is going to be hung, I did think, wow, who made you guys a judge over this person that was being led up? You know what I mean? Like, but at some point you have to have people that are going to judge other people, because you can't just let the people that are doing bad do bad. Bad can get really, really bad if it's unstopped. But I see what you're saying. Like, is death the option for that? Well, is death the solution, I guess, for that?
There are different forms of judgment.
But there's so much corruption, babe. That's what frustrates me. Is there's so much corruption in everything, and in our government, and in the, when you break it down and you hear about the jails and that people are making money off jails, and then you're throwing people in jail for
nonviolent
crimes and stuff. It's like, what is going on? Like, if you actually, and maybe that's why I feel so frustrated about the entire thing, is because it's because you have sinful people that are already bad themselves, judging other bad people and saying your bad is worse than my bad, and so I have the right to throw you over here in this jail and make money off of you. But the whole thing is just frustrating.
Yeah, I mean, it's fueling the prison industrial complex. Some very ardent, brilliant capitalists put two and two together and figured out how to generate revenue on the destruction of people, namely black people.
It's terrible.
No, like I don't necessarily, and this is another conversation I'm having with my good friend. I'm not saying that because all of us are sinful, none of us have the right to judge anything. What I'm saying is we cannot make ultimate judgments. So, in my mind, killing someone is an ultimate judgment. It's saying that you're so bad, you can't be here anymore, so blah, I'm going to kill you.
Yeah.
And again, that's a different situation than two guys are in the trenches together and one guy is fighting to take over the world and create the Third Reich, and another guy is fighting for literally the survival of the planet. And it's me versus you. Like, I understand that. But this whole thing where you systemically drag people out and hang them in front of the community and all the rest of that, like, I think it's a misunderstanding of what God was trying to accomplish in the Old Testament. I think in the Old Testament, you have about I think, 3 or 4 stories of stoning in the entire Old Testament. And I think the reason that God made it public and the reason that the entire community had to take part in it was to demonstrate the way to doing this, man, is too heavy. And if you look from the moment of Cain, if you look at Cain and then what happened throughout history until you got to the flood, you had violence was continuing to increase in the land, in the world, because God didn't want to issue the death penalty. So because God didn't issue the death penalty to Cain, then you have Lamech in chapter 4 or 5 bragging about how he killed this guy. And then he said, well, if there's vengeance for Cain, then there's vengeance for me 70 times 7.
Yeah.
You know, avenge sevenfold. That's, you know, that's where you get it from, right? And then after Lamech, you see the world just continues to... So my whole point about the death, and then it wasn't until after Noah got off the boat where God says, okay, fine. If you shed man's blood, by man's blood you shall be shed, because man was created in the image and likeness of God. And God is saying, okay, the only way right now in history that you guys are not going to completely eradicate yourself is if I institute the death penalty. Fine. But it's obvious from the previous chapters that that wasn't his ideal. So when Christians go, oh, well, look, it says right there in Genesis 8. It's like, well, were you looking at the previous chapters? Did you look at Genesis 4 up to Genesis 8 and see how God treated capital punishment? He didn't like it. Right.
It wasn't his go-to, that's for sure.
And the first person that mentioned capital punishment was Cain. Literally... The first mention in the Bible of capital punishment came from the son of Satan, according to 1 John. That should give you a clue.
Yeah.
And so God kind of looks at it kind of economically and says, okay, fine. You can do the capital punishment thing so you don't completely annihilate each other. And now here you have Jesus showing up and saying, whoever lives by the sword will die by the sword. Rescues people constantly from capital punishment. You know, the early tradition of the woman caught in adultery. And so... it's just very ironic that the people who identify themselves with Christ, who was killed unjustly, an instrument of capital punishment. You know, I really want to piss people off. I say, a person of color was killed unjustly by a bunch of white guys, a bunch of Italians. I really want to piss people off. Don't be mad, but... like, it's just crazy to me. Like, it's just completely disjointed idea. But again, you're right. A lot of this has to do with my own experiences with stuff.
It absolutely does.
And
yeah.
So, you're completely right.
Oh, I know that I am.
But I always get this very strange, like, justifications for killing people. People always feel like they're right. If you go to the Middle East and people who have done horrible things and killed people and killed Americans, like you will look at them and they will. And if you hear their stories, you can go, okay, hey, you son of a bitch, you drone bombed my friend's wedding. They were just regular innocent civilians.
Yeah.
And you heard about it in your news and you said nothing about it. You did nothing. You didn't speak out about it. That means you're complicit, so all of you deserve to die. Well, and Americans, man, like, we really believe we're good people. We really do. Yeah, I keep talking about those 30 pine nut farmers. We killed 30 pine nut farmers. Yeah. Everybody heard about it. Everybody's forgotten about it now. But we're good people, and we get to be the ones to determine who lives or dies on the planet. Okay, all right. That video was extremely powerful.
It was absolutely
extremely powerful.
I'm very glad, Luca, that you sent us that.
Yeah, and I hope
it doesn't get blocked. If it gets blocked, you need to go. You need to look at this video.
Yeah,
because
I think we're gonna. Either way, the patrons are gonna be able to see it, right? The whole thing.
Well, I don't know. Sometimes no, because if I put it up on,
oh yeah, because Patreon still
we have to have a conversation about Vimeo, however you pronounce that.
Vimeo. Patreon still hasn't figured out that adding a video platform would increase their.
Yeah, I know.
It's unbelievable. Really, really good song. It's a. So this is one where I'm going to give it a couple points because of the video itself, because I thought the video was great. It's a 9.9. The song was really, really spooky.
Oh, it was.
But the song was almost like a soundtrack to the video. You could tell they really invested a lot in the video, and I'm glad that they did because I was completely engrossed in it. It was unbelievable. So
it was a 10 for me. There's nothing. I don't see any area that needs improvement.
Yeah, I bump it up to a 10. It's a 10.
Yeah.
Very haunting.
Yes.
And like I said, I love that
so sad
picture of that guy. And he's burning and traditional understandings of hell, and then there's Jesus on the other side. And
a lot could be said.
There's so much there. So much there. Don't kill people is my message.
Yes, and don't take my attitude about it.
No matter how much they deserve it, quote unquote. I'm having this running discussion with my friend, is that if you believe that everybody has the germ of murder in their heart, then you'd be a lot less likely to kill somebody for righteous reasons. So that's a benefit. Anyway, VIN out.
Sorry out.
Gone.